Hey, deserving listeners, The Ultimatum on Netflix. Let's see if anything of interest comes out of my face as I watch.
The answer. Ray made that decision that she wasn't ready. Yeah, I want to go out and say F everything, like F it, I'm getting drunk, I'm getting f***ed up. You know, I'm not saying she's the reason she's the reason.
Another concern about Zay is that when his emotions become intense, he uses alcohol to cope. Now, it's not automatically a problem or a concern. Of course, if it's a pattern, it would become an issue because you would be numbing out feelings that you should be feeling and talking about and getting help with. But he does exhibit, he's able to be emotional. And so I imagine that he doesn't universally use alcohol in that way. But when people are coercive and controlling and aggressive, alcohol use can become a factor in the escalation of that behavior. We didn't see that with Zay. There's no evidence of that with Zay, but that would be something to work on if he were in therapy.
Why I went out and stayed all night, but that is the reason. How am I supposed to feel in that moment? How do you feel when you're alone, but somebody that's supposed to love you and supposed to care about you is in the other room not saying anything to you?
Yeah, so he's alluding to, I think, a pattern and a complaint that I think is legit, that she just avoids and won't communicate to him. And he's saying, how am I supposed to feel? And yeah, absolutely. You feel hurt, you feel upset, you feel scared, you feel angry because of that. Totally. But that doesn't justify a passive-aggressive move where you stay out all night and you turn off your location, you won't respond to phone calls or texts, and you come home at 8 a.m. It doesn't, yeah, how are you supposed to feel? Absolutely. But that doesn't justify taking those kinds of actions at all. But I think he knows that because he did apologize.
I feel like I have been very respectful of your position and your opinion and your thoughts in this whole situation. If I was to tell you my personal opinion, I think that there's no fucking way that Randall can go from 12 a.m. until 8 a.m. and not text me or tell me where I don't give a fuck what we're going through. I'm telling you that for real.
She is saying, I don't think you understand what Ray went through. And I think she has every reason to be very concerned. Now, I think Ray isn't, I mean, at least that's not how I'm taking it. I think Ray, well, let me explain. So it would be easy to conclude, or simplistic to conclude, it could be true, that Ray is breaking up with Zay because he stayed out all night. I don't think that's why. At the very least, we saw the coercive control that Zay exhibited, so I'm guessing that would be on Ray's mind that next morning. But I think she, having been dating someone else who had a different vibe than him and was less intense and perhaps less coercive, I don't know, she now is like, well, I do love Zay, but he's got some big time issues that I don't want to deal with. And then they explode into that and she sees that again. I think there's a good chance that she was already contemplating breaking up anyway, because she did rescind the offer to get engaged. So she was already kind of going in that direction. So anyway, but for Shanique, she's like, I would have absolutely been very, very upset if my partner had done that as well. Now, what I'll say is everyone's different. For some people, they wouldn't be super upset about that because they're just not oriented that way. And some people would be devastated by that. So it's not a universal thing. But the key that happened was that he didn't respond to her texts, was just dismissive of that whole thing. And, that's a pretty hostile act, pretty hurtful act, right? But again, like I said, some people might have relationships where they just have an agreement that sometimes one or both just needs to cool off, and you're actually not even supposed to text them in that situation because they're taking a temporary break. So but it's reasonable that Shanique would feel that way as well.
There's no way. So I'm being respectful. I'm not.
You're not in my position.
And you know what? I'm not. But as a woman, I would never be okay with that.
Obviously, you're a woman, raised a woman, and I think y'all are just automatically.
So he's saying, oh, women are over here and men are over here, and no. What if Ray had stayed out till 8 in the morning? You'd be totally okay with that? It's like, yeah, no big deal. And she was super drunk and came home with cologne smell on her and didn't respond to your texts, and then came home and acted like it was no big deal. You'd just be like, yeah, totally cool, you know? Bros are gonna bro. Like, I have a hard, now maybe, but I have a hard time believing that. It's not a gender thing. Being passive aggressive and hurtful and rejecting doesn't affect genders differently.
Gonna be
No.
I think so.
No.
I think so, because the way that you're talking to me is like, well, you left, and like that is what matters. Because
It's not about you.
no.
I think in his very convoluted way, he's trying to say, well, but do you acknowledge the fact that I was really hurt by the fact that she said she didn't want to necessarily marry me anymore? I think that's what he's trying to say, but he's doing not a good job of it.
No,
It's the fact that
I
you
understand.
were gone until 8 a.m. Zay, what the were you doing until 8 a.m.?
Well, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. I came from a fucked up situation. I did. I grew up in a fucked up way.
All right. I'm always appreciative to hear something. Who knows what that means for Zay, but we could imagine the possibilities. Who knows? Having said that, he's continuing to make excuses for it. And again, if he just said, yeah, it was wrong, like I acknowledged to Ray that I did all those things, all that was wrong, and I was in a very, very bad place. Doesn't justify what I did, but it wasn't like I was just being flippant with our relationship. I was really suffering. Doesn't justify what I did. I think he might be able to say something like that. I don't understand why he just doesn't say that.
I wasn't raised with people that's telling me to do the right shit. So I know I need shit I need to work on. For the first time in my life, I'm saying like, damn, Ray did this. I feel some type of way about that. It hurts.
Interesting. I think he's saying a lot there. He's saying, I'm trying to work on things. I came from a effed up background. So I think that's a passive way of saying he did something wrong. But I've heard people say that. I don't know if I hear people say that in real life, but I've heard people say that on these reality TV shows a lot. We saw Shayna do a similar thing where she's like, I take full responsibility. I do. And it has this effect where you're like, oh, okay, they take full responsibility. It feels satisfying, but everything around that statement is contrary to that. It's almost like people have learned that if they say a certain phrase, it gets them off the hook. It's like, I take full responsibility for that. I acknowledge that. In fact, someone else earlier in this season of this show said something like that. I fully acknowledge that. And it, again, I think it works to get people, oh, okay, well, they acknowledge it, so I'll back off. But everything before and after they said that indicates they do not acknowledge it, don't take responsibility, and are still blaming other people. So it has that flavor to it. Having said that, he did, I think, sincerely apologize to Ray in person and admitted that it was wrong. So he's capable of understanding that it's wrong. But he's being defensive, and he is... I think what's happening, like I said earlier, is that he wants some acknowledgement from his friend, or I don't know their relationship situation right now, but friend, for some acknowledgement that he was in a bad place, but he's having a hard time. But then he also said, for the first, let's rewind that, but I think he said, for the first time, I'm starting to acknowledge my pain. I'm starting to actually recognize it. And if so, that's a very, very good step. Let's rewind.
For the first time in my life, I'm saying like, damn, Ray did this. I feel some type of way about that. It hurts.
Yeah, from the beginning, I've been saying that Zay is capable of advanced emotional intelligence, stuff that even Shanique hasn't exhibited on the show, or maybe hardly anyone else on the show has exhibited it. So he is capable of that, which is a strength of his. He can just admit, I was hurt, and there's no caveats to that. He's just like, I was hurt. And so that's healthy of him. And if that's a new thing, then great. But two, it could be overwhelming, because the reason why we can't acknowledge, the reason why perhaps Shanique has a hard time acknowledging when she's hurt is because if she acknowledges it, she has to deal with it, and it can be very overwhelming. And then not only that hurt becomes in the present, but all the hurts in the past come flooding in, and you just completely decompensate and cry, and you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, and you stuff it all back in the box. So I wonder if for Zay, these feelings are starting to come out and they're becoming more raw, and he's becoming more reactive because of that. Who knows? Let's get back to the show.
Obviously, you talk about your past a lot, and I think that is commendable. You're so much better than everything that you've been through. You will lean on those things as a way for you to have a pass for why you have done or said or felt a certain way. When I do feel like you're at a place in your life where you are so much better than that. You know better.
It's good. That's not how it came across to me. I didn't hear him using it as a crutch or an excuse, but I guess I could see how, at least from her perspective, she hasn't heard him say what I did was wrong. We've heard him say that, but she hasn't heard that. So I think she's trying to get to that place.
Like, come on now, like you know better. Like I never use my past as an excuse, or I'm just telling you why I think the way I think. I met 100 people that me over and that I couldn't trust, and I meet 2 people in my life that I can trust. You think I'm supposed to forget about that other 100?
No.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. He has it's high emotional intelligence, that he's not only recognizing that he's been through a lot, but he's drawing that very specific connection that he was betrayed and mistreated. And he's saying 100 people mistreated me and betrayed me, maybe even abused me. I meet 2 people that I can trust. I'm just supposed to forget about those other 100 people. I'm just supposed to say, like, yeah, I will trust you even though everyone else has betrayed me. So yeah, that's really high emotional intelligence, high awareness, absolutely. It doesn't justify coercion and control. Now, the other thing that we could imagine is that what he's referring to is abuse, or either witnessing abuse or having experienced abuse as himself. And when you see that and you experience it, your gauge of what is acceptable in romantic relationships or any relationships becomes skewed. All of us are like this. Our sense of what is acceptable in a relationship when we're angry is dictated by our experiences and our culture and our own path and our parents. And so if we get modeled abusive behavior, like let's just say to hypothesize that Zay has seen extreme abuse. Well, that skews his sense of what is. I have something in my eye. I have contacts, and so sometimes let me deal with this. Okay, I'm back. So I think it was an eyelash. I don't know. Sometimes randomly an eyelash just gets lodged in your eyeball. So let's say that he saw a lot of severe abuse, and it skews his sense of what is ethical in a relationship. But then later on, he learns, no, that's not okay, and he corrects for it, but not entirely. So say he corrects 90% for it, and so in his mind, he's like, well, I didn't do all the other things that I saw. I didn't do the things that I had an impulse to do. I actually refrained from doing, those kind of abusive things. I didn't do that, so I must be okay, because their sense of where the threshold was skewed by the fact of the modeling. So maybe that's what's happening. That if I had a client like this, that would be one of the roads that I would go down.
You told me Ray left me like everyone else in my life has left me. Was you were blaming someone else for having a reaction to an action. So when I say that you're using your past as a reason to act or react the way that you do, it's because I've seen you make the connections to things that just really are 2 separate situations.
They're not separate. They're very, very relevant. And he is wise to make that connection. He is saying 100 people betrayed me and mistreated me. And so when Ray, although not mistreating me, has a hint of mistreating me, I have not only a huge amount of hurt, but I have a huge reaction in response to that hurt. I don't know if he would know that full description, but I know he knows a part of that, if not the full. So absolutely, it's absolutely true. It's not an excuse though, and she has reasons to believe that he's using it as an excuse because he kind of framed it that way earlier. But like I said, we know that he at least has, with Ray, taken full responsibility and used no excuses for staying out all night. We did not hear them talk about him putting hands on for such an extended period of time. Maybe they talked about it off camera. Hopefully they did.
Everyone is patient with you because you've been through the things that you've been through in life. I feel like we should be just as fair and patient. With Ray, we don't know what the fuck I don't know what the fuck she's been through. I don't know why she's having a hard time opening up and saying what she's feeling. And I feel like no one is giving her the same space. That's just my opinion from what I see. Wait, I'm not done. Because you're about to say something. Don't.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I mean, she's saying, I don't think we are giving Ray the amount of space. Do they talk about all these things amongst the cast members or something? I don't know. Or is she saying, I don't think you give her enough space to actually have a similar experience and a similar set of traumas or something, or giving her the leeway that you're giving yourself leeway because of what you've been through. Are you giving her leeway because of what she's been through?
Don't. I'm not done.
I don't want to cut.
Wait, don't.
No. I'm not going to explain anything.
Don't cut me off.
Listen,
I'm not done.
just
I'm
listen.
not done. I'm not done.
Yeah. She notices he's about to say something. It's like, don't cut me off. I'm not done. And I thought, okay, well, good. Shanique is more communicatively, her communication style is more intense than Ray. And so Zay is dealing with someone that's maybe kind of like him in that way. And so she's like, don't interrupt me. I have something to say. And I'm like, okay, good. And then he proceeds to interrupt her. Like, just let it go. There's a lot of time to talk because, it's not worth it.
Not done.
Just listen.
I'm not
finna say a whole. I'm just letting you know. I don't want to.
Zay, I'm not done.
All right, then go ahead. Keep on going.
Yeah, and then you are hostile, and then she's going to be hurt by that and frustrated and not want to continue. And all you had to do, I thought they were having an intense conversation, but it was within the realm of constructiveness. And then now, because he refused to listen and not interrupt, and then is now being hostile, that's going to upset her. And now we might not be given a chance to have more constructive conversation.
I'm saying if someone does not have that ability, just like how we're patient enough to understand people's traumas and how they affect them today, and the fact
Why
that
you just say that like that?
Absolutely. The way she worded it and the way she's kind of been talking, I didn't know if she was coming from that place, but that tone definitely came across as dismissive to people's traumas, as if she believes that it doesn't really matter. And a lot of people believe that, which is, of course, destructive to human beings, but annoying to me because it denies reality. But I don't blame her, because a lot of people, if not the majority of people in society, would adhere to her point of view. I put my thoughts out there, as you all know, and I'll get comments from people saying, like, because I'm talking about people's traumas, and I hope you know that I never excuse people's behavior. It's not an excuse, but it does provide a model of understanding human beings so that we can actually change people's behavior by indirectly by actually helping them with their trauma, so they won't do that. And so anyway, so she is, and then people will attack me online. They'll be like, oh, yeah, the liberals, and everyone is a special. Everyone gets a ribbon. You can't believe the stupid shit I see. Like, is that what you get out of it? Like, I'm saying, because I'm not like some kind of militant, angry YouTuber railing about people's behavior and judging them and criticizing them, suddenly I'm sort of like a snowflake cuck that, it is astonishing, the brainwashing that I will see in people. It's like, whoa, what sort of weird echo chamber brainwashing situation have you been a part of? Like, to have that perspective, like, wow. Like, it's essentially, it's bumping up against like a cult member. You're just like, oh boy, I feel bad for you. I can't imagine being you or someone close to you. Yeah. So anyway, she's not one of those people. She's just exhibiting a very average point of view, which is like, you have to take responsibility. I think it's because she's coming from a place where she believes that he's making excuses, which again, you could see her believing given the way he's presenting. But ouch, to just, regardless of if you think someone is using it as an excuse, to just dismiss the whole topic the way that she did is, I feel bad for Zay, and I hope that he doesn't take it personally. Let's rewind that.
It's like how we're patient enough to understand people's traumas and how they affect them today, and the fact
Why
that
you just say that like that?
Say?
I'm done with this conversation.
Rewatching the scene, I don't know what her intention was. It came across as dismissive the first time I watched it. The second time, I'm thinking, well, I don't know. It seemed possibly dismissive, and you could certainly see how Zay would take it as dismissive to that, which I would say would be pretty upsetting to anyone, let alone to Zay, because for him, he's being vulnerable. He's expressing his issues, and to just have someone dismiss that would be hurtful. Again, I think where she's coming from is that the way he's presenting in this conversation is he essentially is saying it wasn't my fault. It's basically her fault, and I have issues, so she needs to just deal with that. And I think that's where she's coming from. So it's unfortunate that this conversation is getting to this place.
That was what? Why would you say that like that?
This is why you guys get into arguments the way you do. How about you come back and explain to me what I said wrong, Zay? You don't want to contribute to the conversation because all you want to do is walk off.
All right, so Shanique is saying, you could have just said what was wrong, and he could have. He could have said, well, it hurts my feelings that you seem to be dismissive of the traumas that I've been through and the way it affects me, and that hurt my feelings. He could have said that. But, when someone says something like that, it's hard to trust them with being even more vulnerable. But, he could have.
Just have a fucking conversation.
No, fuck that. You know what the fuck you was saying before you said it.
Tell me.
Let me talk about your fucking childhood and just belittle that shit.
Right. And, yeah, I could imagine that being very triggering to someone. It doesn't justify him being hostile in this moment, but it's understandable that he's triggered. I mean, just imagine you've been through a lifetime of trauma, and some of you can't imagine because you've been through this, and you have the trust in someone temporarily to talk about that, even in a very tangential way, the way that he didn't talk about the trauma, but he said it was hard for me. I went through a lot of issues, and to have someone be like, to have that tone, would absolutely trigger someone. And it's just unfortunate that happened, because I think that they were having a good conversation. All right, well, that is for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.